they would be friends, that our friendship is strong enough that we would be friends with or without the camera. So that's a little bit different. So what happened is we already have a foundation of trust, a foundation of knowing each other. So by the time we're photographing the nudes, I have many conversations with them where they don't necessarily feel naked anymore. Like they feel confident and comfortable in their skin. They feel that it is, they feel secure. They also know that I will communicate to them the images that I thought worked out for me. I always show to my collaborators, I always show to them all the images. If there's anything that they really feel shouldn't be used, they are more than welcome to tell me. Very rarely there's a moment like that, but I like to I like to show them all of the photographs, because that way I'm like creatively naked for them, right? So it's equal terms. I show the moments that I made a mistake. Maybe they were posing so beautifully and I messed up on the exposure, and then I have to say I'm sorry, right? So I show the moments that I fail, and I'm also human, and that's all we are, both of us, if I'm photographing someone. So I think that that's a very honest relationship that we have with each other. They also know that I will not show anything that maybe was, there's, when you're working with someone, if you're photographing an object, you can do different angles and you go around it, and that's what you photograph. But when you're photographing a person, it's not just the angles and composition. You're dealing with the psychology of the moment. And I think I'm really, really interested on that psychology as well. That's very much part of, I think, the mystery of the human being is very much what keeps me wanting to go back over and over and to create and to see if we can create something amazing again. I always think that my best image is the last one that I will ever be able to accomplish.
I hear you saying that you and your subjects are collaborators, and it sounds like you're relying on them to help you, with like a particular emotive state. I know that you also do commercial work, and there are portraits that you're commissioned to do of particular people. Is that part of your process there? Are you coming with beforehand with an idea on how you want to shoot a particular person for these commercial projects, or is it once again getting to know them, opening a dialogue, trying to kind of get to some part of who they are, who they want to project themselves as being?
So on the personal work, is very much about a certain state of mind, right? It's very much about the subject and we try to enter, so to speak, a little bit of a parallel reality. Or sometimes we use that expression that we're zoning into our creative world, right? You're zoning in or zoning out or something. So I think that my main concern while we're having conversations and talking and so on is to use parts of the life that we're sharing with each other into images that have some metaphor that might be more than just a portrait of the person on the personal work, right? Where someone comes into the gallery and they might project themselves into a portrait of someone else, and they might remember something about themselves that is reflected on this image of someone else. So I think when I'm doing the personal work, I'm really aiming, not that I always get it right, but I'm really trying to aim at an image that, as much as it is an image of someone that I know, that personality is opened up into metaphors where other people could project themselves into it. When it comes to the commercial work, many times what happens is that maybe our directors are familiar with my work, and they might say, hey, I really like what you did there, but now, for example, like a fashion brand like Bottega Veneta or Dior, they say, we like what you do on your personal work, but now can you do this with our clothes, and can we recreate some of that? And in that case, it's a whole other side of me. I'm not trying to create my personal metaphors, because they have in their forefront of their thoughts, they have a list of things that they need. The clothes need to be looking a certain way. Like there's a 1,000 requirements that come from like the account managers on ad agencies or so, or from the people dealing with if it's like clothes or if it's jewelry or whatever it is. They have a ton of requirements that need to be fulfilled for them. So that's a commercial work. Then I get paid to get that for them and to deliver that to them, and to really make sure that all of those puzzle pieces that they need and my style come together. So in that sense, I think it's less of an internal creativity, is more of a external creativity, right? I'm solving problems for a client. It's different than on the commercial work. I'm going inside of my soul. I'm having a relationship with my soul, with my thoughts, with other people's ideas and how they want to project each other. And we really have a more, engage on more metaphysical conversations.
So where do you find your subjects? I mean, like, I know, like your series Bordeaux, that was kind of one community, and it was the people in that community, if I remember right. But other series, are you casting models, or are these people? It comes across that you're establishing some sort of rapport with these folks. So it's almost like, and right. Many of your subjects look like real people, right? Versus somebody ordered out of a catalog, right?
Right. So I think that's why I've been, it's hard for me to say, the easiest thing is to call them the models from a photographer, but they're not models. That's why I keep saying collaborators. A lot of them enjoy that idea of being photographed, but they haven't been photographed by professional photographers. There's a lot of people that are maybe creatively minded and want to engage in a creative project and understand my visual vocabulary, but they don't necessarily want to be modeling. I think that there's your initial question about where do I find them. It depends on the series. I have at the very beginning, when I was very active photographing at this nature's community in France, I was able to have relationships with people there and then photograph them, and they would refer me to someone else because they realized they felt safe and there was an accountability, and I would show them the work, and they knew that the process could be trusted. But I also have done work here in the U.S., in the Mojave Desert, 2 different series at different moments. And for those, it was a little more, I had to reach out more to people that wanted to engage. So I reached out. A lot of it is word of mouth, because I do want to have people that are not professional models. The difference is a professional model will give the same expression to 10 different photographers. And that's great if you're under pressure, and when you have a commercial job is great because the professional model knows exactly how the best expressions and positioning work, and then makes the job of the photographer much easier. But on my personal work, I really prefer people that have not been necessarily that photographed, because there's a certain authenticity there. That's what I think is important, and it's part of the work. That there's a certain element of being unique, or at least the moment of being unique is not when they're looking towards the lens, they're not looking towards the lens all knowing how to look at the lens. And that, to me, that feels a lot more legitimate. The work that I did in Bordeaux, the Bordeaux series that you mentioned, that work was I wanted to photograph a wider cross section of the French population, so to speak, and I photographed in Bordeaux. In Bordeaux, you have the University of Bordeaux, so I was able to reach out to French, but Muslim French and Algerian French and younger or older. So there was a bit more of a range there that I wanted to encompass. So I think that was a little bit more how I got into that series.
I feel like I've heard you talk before about one of your earlier aha moments as a photography student was this realization about it really all kind of boiling down to shadows. But when I look at your work, your use of contrast is so subtle that, I think a lot of photographers in this generation, especially maybe people that are new to photography, are really drawn to high contrast, high saturation, but there's something about your subtle use of value that the word quiet keeps coming up, but your use, your palette, it can be differentiated from other photographers just in my mind based on that subtle use of value. Is that am I right or wrong there?
Oh, you're absolutely right, and I do appreciate that you see it, that you perceive it, because I think it was intended to be perceived either knowingly or subconsciously. But let me just take a step back. When I talk about the shadow and my relationship to photography, it's a different take. I think what you're referring to is when I mentioned my realization that I think I was in one of my first classes printing in the darkroom or so. I went outside with the print to show to the teacher because you want to see sometimes with the daylight, and I asked, is this good or not good? And then the teacher at the time mentioned probably that I have to redo it. But in any case, at the moment when the teacher went back into the darkroom, and I was standing there for the first time, I realized that I am a being, and which, it goes to everyone, that you are a being and that you cast a shadow and that shadow will always be there and while you are alive. And that realization is more of an existential realization, right? And the fact that it's not just that I am a human being because my brain is telling me or allowing me to make that conclusion, but if nothing else, the fact that I have a shadow proves the point in a way that I do exist physically there. So that to me was more of a conscientization of saying I'm really, really interested on the human, on the figure, but also on our presence of what are we doing during the lifetime that we are on planet Earth. I mean, I know it kind of gets a little esoteric, but it's kind of true. I do think about those things. No other planet out there we would be able to live, right? So this is the only planet in the entire solar system, possibly our galaxy, where there is that is so beautiful, that is so conducive for me to just stand there and look at my shadow. And so that to me is a huge existential seed of my work. But then, what was the second part of your question? Yeah. So then the values and the contrast in my work itself, that I don't bring so much right away. I don't like the high contrast. I do like a lot of nuances. I like darker tonalities at times because it helps me hide the nude in a way, so it's not so overt or gratuitous presented in the image. So I have used shadow to help disguise a bit or make it more mysterious, but with a lot of nuance and with a lot of a little softer palette. It's true. One of the first things that I do when when I am photographing is